New responses today from Russia after the Obama administration punished the country for cyber activities tied to our elections. The White House imposed sanctions on officials and intelligence services, closed 2 Russian facilities, and ordered nearly 3 dozen diplomats to leave by the weekend. Here's why.
Our bottom line is that what Russia has been engaged in over the last few months and years is unacceptable. It's outside the norms of diplomatic behavior, and the president is sending a message today to tell them to cut it out. That's why he ordered aggressive actions in order to curb their, in order to deter them from doing this again.
Russia's embassy responded to the sanctions with this lame duck tweet. President Vladimir Putin also responded, condemning the actions, but said Russia won't retaliate. So Putin says, you know, not yet.
Niet. Yeah, this was not a winning diplomatic moment, really, for the United States, because instead of like coming back with an iron fist, he said, kind of a head fake. He said that wasn't really any kind of sanctions that they should be worried about. Then you have the president-elect Donald Trump coming back saying that Putin, in fact, he always knew that he was a very, smart guy. So this isn't great optics for President Obama right now. There's always been this kind of thinly veiled contempt that Vladimir Putin has shown for our president, Barack Obama, and this is just another example of that.
And Ebony, what did they in fact do? They sent 35 diplomats home who allegedly may have been spying,
Sure.
And they closed down 2 compounds.
Yeah, I agree. I think this was not even close to far enough. I'll actually quote former UN Ambassador Bolton. We need to get past the politics of this, because if even a piece of what is alleged about the Russian activity is true, it is utterly unacceptable, and it is an attack on our constitutional system. And I think that's so important, Eric, and I've kind of been saying for a while now, whether you agree that it was done with the intention of throwing this election towards Donald Trump or not, if it's even true, it's a real big problem.
Yeah.
And we have to be swift and strong and completely aggressive, and I agree with KG, this wasn't even close to aggressive enough.
And probably too late. I mean, if he knew about this ahead of time, he should have done something before. Versus this timeout. He tried to give the Kremlin a timeout. It didn't work.
But you know what he actually may have accomplished, President Obama, by this? He got Lindsey Graham and John McCain to go on the record and say the sanctions were tough enough, we need to do tougher sanctions before they even have the evidence.
Well, I think it's another example from President Obama, who's sort of been all bark and no bite. And we've seen this throughout his presidency. And really, Putin's been the beneficiary of that weakness from President Obama, because what we've seen from President Obama is that our enemies have really become emboldened under him. And specifically with Russia, we're talking right now is there's that temporary ceasefire in Syria, and that is an example of where President Obama has allowed Putin to assert its power and authority in the Middle East, the first time in decades to be essentially a power player right now in both Syria and Iraq as well, where we failed to leave a status of forces agreement and allowed a breeding ground for ISIS. And you look at Russia has set up a new air base in Latakia, I believe, in Syria. Has also announced in October that a naval facility he's going to make permanent as well. And there's Russian and Iranian troops in Syria that are set up shop. So, you look at sort of this weakness of President Obama, and Putin's been a huge beneficiary of that weakness.
What do you think? What was this really about? Was this at Putin or was this at Trump?
No, this is about Obama. His foreign policy's done. His presidency's done. And Russia has made a joke of him over the last few months. Syria, we're on the wrong end of that. They look great on that. The hacking, when it was going down, we didn't do anything because the arrogance of the Democratic Party was Hillary was going to win in a landslide anyways. So if there was hacking or whatever, nothing was going to take away from the landslide victory. Didn't happen, so now they're looking and they're scrambling. We got to blame somebody, so we got to blame the Russians. If you want to look at it for what it was, you could say, in my opinion, it was an act of war to mess with our election. But we didn't do that, because we weren't worried about it. And now it's happened, it's over, all the stuff's going to come out, and you're saying your diplomats have to go home, and Putin's saying, that's it? That's all you get? And then while you're doing that, he's getting a DM saying, don't worry about it, bruh. After the 20th, we're good.
We got this.
Don't trip.
Is it a bad thing for our... No, I agree with everyone here that if they did, in fact, hack and affect the elections, there needs to be sanctions, and they need to be reprimanded, and severely. However, we don't have proof of that, and in light of, until we do, and if we don't have that proof, is it a bad thing for President Donald Trump to be in good favor with Vladimir Putin?
I don't think it's in bad favor. I mean, I don't think it's a bad move for him to be in a good favor. You want to be able to sit down. You want to be able to talk to the other side, get to the bottom of things, and in fact have that healthy amount of fear and respect so that you can actually sit across from somebody and say, hey, listen, I know what you're up to. I know what you're up to. But actually have some kind of amount of respect so that he knows that if President-elect Donald Trump says something, that he's going to do it, that he's going to follow through. The problem I have with this scenario is, yes, of course, if Russia is meddling and trying to interfere, has an intentionality to influence U.S. elections, bad luck for them, because then we need to respond in kind. But the situation here is we didn't have a full and thorough investigation. The timeline is all off, because why is he engaging in this? And like you said, Tyrus, he's acting now, he's upset, he's stomping his foot at the Russians, but it's a day late and a dollar short, because he thought potentially that Hillary was going to win the presidency. She didn't, so it looks like they're only bringing it up now, despite having evidence about it. He should have done a full and thorough investigation at the time that he first sniffed it out.
Not only that, Ebony, before the election, the emails that WikiLeaks leaked weren't that big of a deal to the Democrats.
To them at the
It
time.
wasn't a big deal.
And
Oh,
that's
there's
why,
Podesta's macaroni casserole recipe. And they said, no, there's nothing here. There's no there.
Yeah.
And then she loses.
And now it's a problem.
It's the reason why
Look,
she lost.
and that's why I always say if it's good for the goose, it's got to be good for the gander. So you can never kind of have this attitude if it only matters if it affects you adversely in the moment. And that's super dangerous. I do want to go to the point, though, Eric, you're talking about this. I think a lot of questions among Americans right now, the relationship between Vladimir Putin and President-elect Trump, and what that really looks like. And I agree with you, KG. Having a relationship as two leaders of incredibly powerful countries, that's important, and that could very well serve to be our favor. But for those of us who don't know as much about President-elect Trump and what that's going to look like moving forward, I think there are legitimate concerns around how far that kind of flattery thing goes, what that's going to look like down the road, and I will not be one to presume what it's going to look like, but I do have concerns around it.
No, I mean, look, I think some of the things that Donald Trump tweets out, I don't understand, because he's sort of throwing fire on gasoline, you know, I think with especially that tweet today to Vladimir Putin. But, I mean, there are some actions that he has taken that, you know, make me feel a little bit better in the sense of some of the people that he has surrounded himself within his cabinet, like General Mattis or Michael Flynn. The fact that he's bringing on Tom Bossert, I believe is the pronunciation of his name, Department of Homeland Security, who did cybersecurity under George W. Bush, who takes it very seriously, who's sort of tasked with that role as well in the Trump administration. And we've been getting hacked left and right from the Iranians. Russia hacked into the Joint Chiefs of Staff, shut down that system, unclassified system, for 2 weeks. You know, so China with OPM obtaining Social Security numbers, I think, for something like 22 million people.
All over the place.
Right,
Hollywood,
these are important issues.
We're going to send everyone out. I mean, you know, you pick Russia because allegedly that's the reason why Hillary lost. But these other countries are hacking us too.
Well, Russia also been punching us in the mouth a little bit over foreign policy. They've made some big moves, and the whole thing with Donald Trump and Putin, here's my thing. Sometimes my enemy's enemy is my friend, that old saying. And the biggest issue with American people, they want ISIS, they want the Middle East situation settled. And to be honest with you, I'd rather be riding in with Russia dealing with that than France. No offense, just keeping it real.
Right.
And let's put back, we're not going to 80, like the Cold War and all that stuff. Right now, Russia's handling stuff, and if we're working together.
True. I just think we have to be careful, though, right? Because I personally believe that Putin and Russia, they really want the gravitas that the United States has in the world, right? And I think we all know that. So I agree with you. I think that let them do what they do, and if they're helpful with ISIS and all this, that's all good. But let's just be mindful of what that relationship ultimately needs to look like.
And real quick, though, too, so if you remember, Putin not too long ago was tweeting out about the fact that, you know, they're going to strengthen their nuclear arsenal, and then shortly thereafter, Trump tweeted out, well, you know, America is going to, you know, so I don't necessarily think he's going to allow himself to be bullied by Putin in the same degree where, you know, President Obama has been by, you know, the aggression we've seen with China and the South Sea, the Iranians, Russia, I mean, you name it. And he's just let America be bullied by, you know, all these different countries who have acted more aggressively under his watch. So I don't think we'll see that from Donald Trump.
KG, feels like he's settling a lot of scores on his way out of office.
Okay, and is that more about his ego? It should be more about what's in the best interest of the American people. And by the way, America shouldn't be embarrassed to be a superpower, because Russia's not. So I think you're going to see a very, very different approach to international and foreign policy and to U.S. national security come January 20th. And it's long overdue, because the respect has gone out the door.
There you go.